Somehow Mayakashi and Ice Barriers come out of nowhere for this week's next play. Make sure you guys smash the living crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out more Oz content. This is a huge next play tournament here. So your breakdown for this week, we had 9 Rescue Ace decks. Where in the world did all of these come from? Like, that is literally 1/4 of the field straight dedicated to Rescue Ace. And am I surprised about the turnover? Honestly, not really. I've noticed that well, obviously it's Year of the Fire in Japan right now. Like, Japan is just chugging through all of these decks, and it does appear that, well, Rescue Ace is the most consistent. Following it up here is Ritual Beast, Dinkatron, and Labyrinth. Now, keep in mind, 2 of these decks are from the most recent release Terminal World here, and they are pretty much what were considered the better versions of everything from that pack. You know, Ritual Beast not being locked behind the ever so amazing once per turn clause, and then, you know, good old Dinkatron being a level 1 fire out here gives you the ability to sift through, you know, all of the gas that you could ever want in the Infernoid deck, and Labyrinth still has access to a lot of the same, you know, good stuff that it's had up to this point. So I'm not really surprised to see like these being the higher functioning builds. Now, we have an Ice Barrier deck down here in the 2 ofs, which is actually kind of interesting because Ice Barriers had not initially been doing too much. Honestly, at first look at the deck, it looked like it kind of had failed initially. And then I see that we are bringing up Flamber's Dragon and Friends, and then I see, is that a Danger deck? Maybe it's like Danger Dark World or something somewhere along the way here, but okay. And I'm not really sure what the next one is. And then I see we have Mayakashi over here. Okay. I'm not sure on the next one. Then we have Thunder Dragons. We only had one, is that Fire King? We had one Shadal, we had one Runic, we had one Astrograph Sorcerer and Friends, one Menkanko, one Rika, and it looks like we had one of the really interesting Merrymaker decks for Spriggans. So, I mean, overall, looking at this, I'm pretty intrigued by the choices here, because, you know, Terminal World initially sat out to feel like it didn't really change all that much in the meta, and seeing here that you are getting a little shift, you know, something's got to give for Year of the Fire, and it looks like people are challenging the norms for this. Now, here comes the rough part of this. We have in your top cut. Now, they always love doing top 7. I believe it's got to do with how many participants are actually at these events versus what's left. But your Rescue Ace field gets dramatically destroyed. Like, I'm actually impressed by the amount of difference, you know, from participation down into the top cut here for Rescue Ace. But only 2 of the 9 Rescue Ace decks made it through into the top cut, which is mind-boggling crazy to me that that's your conversion rate. Now, I don't know what else to say. Now, interestingly enough, hi Fire Kings, how are you? Both of our Fire King duelists look like they overcame everything, and if that doesn't really tell you about, you know, the consistency of this deck, I'm just impressed that more people chose to play Rescue Ace over what appears to be the consistent package for, you know, Fire Kings, because if you just participated and you played Fire Kings, you converted over beautifully. Now onwards to the weird side of the meta here. No Dinkatron, no Ritual Beast. Our challenger taking it on through here is actually Ice Barriers of all things, and I'm really impressed. Like, I gotta clap for it. Ice Barriers managed to pull through here and showcase that we can do something. You also see, yes, that is Mayakashi making a top 8. Now, the deck didn't quite make it into top 4. I still have it to showcase, because when you see something like this, you gotta take a step back and go, what in the world is actually, you know, happening with this? And then it appears that Thunder Dragons also, you know, got through into top cut this week. So you have such a diverse top cut for this. It's it's actually almost comical at this point. But Mayakashi, wow, let's pass on over to decklist. Winning our event here is, actually, to not my surprise, Rescue Ace, sporting off 2 copies of Poppius in the main deck. So basically, you're still doing most of your Rescue Ace package, but now it looks like the build is actually dramatically reducing a lot of the pieces that you need. You see double Sinful Spoils down there. You play the 1 for the conversion to the level 1/1 field spell, and then you play triple Bonfire, because you have the Bonfire interaction to go search for Poppius, which, in turn puts a monster on the field, and then you're able to kind of start, toggling through with all of that. It absolutely is crazy. You do see a pointer of the Red Lotus. I'm really glad that the OCG is enjoying that card. Can't say that the TCG really would have wanted to keep it around at this point, but okay. We're also playing a Hate Grenade as well to clear off those heavy back row oriented BS little things along the way. So, okay, I'm not surprised. I mean, double SP Little Knight. This deck is an absolute menace. Next up is our Rescue Ace, or excuse me, our Ice Barrier deck. And I'm actually really surprised to see Ice Barrier actually performing out here, because for everything that we considered for this deck, most of the initial ideas didn't really feel like they stuck around. And we're playing 1 copy of the Ice Barrier for the actual search effect. It's actually pretty good. We're only playing 1 copy of the Ice Jade, ran a grind. Honestly, I can see why you're opting to only play the 1 of for it. I do think for the most part, though, that you want to try out multiples, but it depends on the build, right? Like, you've got to remember you're playing cross out here so you don't get drolled, and we've already seen how stupid droll can actually be in some of these matchups. I also like the fact we are playing the summon limit down here as well, and this build is also taking advantage of evenly matched. So, if it found itself in a situation that it necessarily couldn't clean up, you could at least evenly try to reset things like a Fire King field, and then move on along with your day and try to get some advantage through that. Top 4 here. We have Flamberge Dragon and the little Fire Kings. Well, I'm not surprised. Also, three Ashen, 1 Poppius, 1 Flamberge Dragon, 2 copies of Grunix, and the rest of it is all just, soft looping to, start setting up. We played the 1 copy of the Molination. I'm glad to still see that sticking around. I see that we are playing triple copies of our dear best friend in the whole wide world, the Sinful Spoils. And then, of course, the Zealantis, which has actually became a huge piece of this deck as late. Resetting these soft once per turn Fire King effects so you can initially reuse them is actually kind of crazy. And then you set up these crazy boards. You put your opponent into such a bad position. It's actually really good. I also noticed we're only playing 1 copy of the Activate Fire King Island from deck, and then 2 copies of Fire King Island itself. Not terrible for the ratios. Once again, I like what we're seeing. We're seeing Phantasme down here as well for the era of Link. Next up, we have more Rescue Ace. Okay. Now, this build feels pretty similar to our last one, though. This build is playing a nice little swash of 42. Play 1 copy of the field spell, 1 Pot of Prosperity for filtering, 2 Poppius, 1 Diabellstar. Now, this build did opt for the triple Sinful Spoils spell card to get the search, which is fine. I mean, at this point with Bonfire and all the interactions that you can toggle through with that, you have a lot more options available to you than I think initially people would have thought. We side the other trap card down here, good old Reinforce, and then you do see our Thrust post-side deck as well. It's so cool to see that the OCG has actually managed to stop playing Thrust in a lot of these builds. All right, to be fair, I mean, how the meta is, I don't blame them for pushing Thrust out, because, a full set 4, you're just going to look at, Thrusting and be like, well, that's worthless. And then we have our Mayakashi pile here. Now, this is actually really cool because we're playing Kaiser Coliseum as a little slowdown here to the opponent. Also, I mean, this deck incredibly will show up every once in a while and just, punish the opponent. Also, you still have one of the best trap cards available to you in the game. So, taking advantage of your opponent not getting the chance to special summon is actually insane. Plus, Kaiser Coliseum locking them. I'm really impressed that this deck managed to come through. And Mayakashi's been one of those decks that, if your opponent doesn't have a check to it, you're just kind of free to do whatever you want. And that's actually what makes it a really dumb meta choice. Like, honestly, you never really see it doing well, but I mean, if it does do its thing, I'm not surprised that it's able to tear through the meta. So what do you think about these decks? Please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back later today, guys. Peace out. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.